They said the second baby shouldn't have survived because in this village, twins are a curse. The night the twins were born, the rain didn't fall, it attacked. Thunder cracked like the sky was splitting open. Inside a small mud house at the edge of H village, Mama Sod screamed as the midwife pulled out the first baby. The boy. Strong lungs. Loud cry. But before anyone could celebrate, another cry followed. Silence swallowed the room. The midwife froze. Baba Kemi, the father, stepped back like he had seen a ghost. 2. He whispered. In H village, twins want blessings. They were omens. For generations, the elders believed twins were born with divided spirits, one light, one dark. One destined to protect, the other to destroy. The midwife didn't smile. She didn't congratulate. She simply wrapped the babies separately and said, "Call the chief." By morning, the entire village knew. Chief Adisa arrived with the elders, including Baba Femi, the most feared traditionalist in H. He stared at the twins as if they were objects, not children. "The spirits are testing us," Baba Femi declared. "One must be cleansed, or both will bring ruin." Mama Sod clutched her babies tighter. "They are just children." But fear spreads faster than truth. Neighbors whispered. Some refused to fetch water from the same stream as the family. Others said the drought from last year had been a warning. Chief Adise made the ruling. The twins would not be killed. That tradition had been abandoned years ago after missionaries passed through. But they would be marked, washed, isolated. "They will grow," the chief said calmly, "but if misfortune follows, we will know why." And just like that, Tay and Kenny were declared cursed before they even opened their eyes to the world. From that day on, the village split them in their minds. Tay, the firstborn, barely cried. His eyes were soft, observant. Kenny, the second, stared too long at people, as if studying them. People said they could feel it already. The difference. The danger. And deep in the shadows, Baba Femi smiled, because fear is easier to control than faith. No one noticed the way Kenny's tiny fingers gripped tighter whenever the villagers spoke in whispers. As if even as a baby, he understood. Growing up in H village meant growing up washed. Every stumble, every fever, every failed harvest somehow traced back to the twins. If a goat died, someone would mutter, "It started when those two were born." If a child fell sick, eyes shifted toward Mama Soda's hut. Tay learned early to lower his gaze. To speak softly. To help anyone who asked. He fetched water for widows. He carried firewood for the elderly. He forced himself to smile even when children refused to play with him. Kenny was different. He noticed the way mothers pulled their children away from him but not from Tay. He noticed how elders would bless Tay but hesitate before touching his head. "Why do they look at us like that?" Kenny asked one evening as they sat under the Iroko tree. Tay shrugged. "If we are good, they'll forget." Kenny laughed softly. "They don't want to forget." At age 10, the first real tragedy struck. A fire broke out in the storage barns. Crops meant to last through the dry season burned to ash. The flames spread wildly, almost unnaturally fast. By morning, the village square buzzed with accusations. Baba Femi didn't waste time. "The dark spirit has awakened," he announced. And even though there was no proof, I turned to Kenny. "Not Tay. Never Tay." Mama Sod wept in front of the chief. Baba Kemi begged. But the seed had been planted years ago. Fear doesn't need evidence. From that day, Tay tried harder to protect his brother. He stood beside him in public. Took blame for minor things. Even lied once, claiming he had knocked over a lantern when in truth it had been a faulty oil jar. But protection can feel like pity. And pity feels like humiliation. Kenny stopped talking as much. Stopped smiling. Stopped trying. At night, he would stare at the ceiling and listen to the village drums beating in the distance. "They'll never see us as human," he whispered once. Tay responded, "Then we show them." But what happens when one twin wants acceptance? And the other wants reckoning? The drought came without warning. The river that once ran proudly through age began shrinking into a muddy trail. Crops withered. Livestock grew thin. Whispers returned. "It's happening again." Chief Adise called for a village gathering. "The spirits are angry. And we all know why." This time, he didn't say Kenny's name. He didn't have to. Tay stepped forward before anyone else could speak. Blaming us won't bring rain. Gasps rippled through the crowd. No one spoke to elders like that. Chief Adisa eyes narrowed. You dare challenge tradition? I challenge fear, Tay replied calmly. For the first time, the villagers saw something else in him. Strength. But strength can threaten power. That evening, Tay made a decision. He would leave the village temporarily. Travel beyond the hills. Seek knowledge from neighboring communities that had learned irrigation techniques from traders passing through. If I can bring water back, he told his parents, they'll have to see we're not cursed. Kenny watched silently. You think saving them will change their hearts? He asked. It has to, Tay said. But Kenny's voice was cold. Or maybe they deserve what they fear. The next morning, Tay left. And for the first time in their lives, the twins were separated. Age Village didn't realize it yet. But removing the light sometimes makes the shadows grow bolder. Without Tay around, the silence around Kenny became louder. Children stopped walking near him entirely. Market women whispered openly. Even Mama Sod noticed the change. Then something strange began happening. Baba Femi started visiting Kenny at night. Not to accuse. To talk. You feel it too, don't you? The old man would say. The anger. The injustice. Kenny didn't answer at first. But Baba Femi was patient. They fear you because you're powerful. Why beg for acceptance when you could command respect? It was the first time someone in authority didn't look at Kenny with disgust. It felt intoxicating. Meanwhile, Tay journeyed through neighboring villages, learning about damming small streams, digging deeper wells, redirecting water flow. He worked tirelessly, earning trust, gathering knowledge. Back home, Baba Femi's influence deepened. He convinced Kenny that the drought was an opportunity. When desperation peaks, he said softly, people will accept any solution. One night, under Baba Femi's guidance, Kenny performed a forbidden ritual near the shrinking river not to curse it but to secretly block one of the underground water paths using stones and debris. The river shrank even more. Panic exploded in H. And Baba Femi stepped forward. We must cleanse the village, he declared. Or sacrifice will be required. Sacrifice. The word hung heavy. And for the first time, Kenny didn't feel like the victim. He felt powerful. Weeks later, Tay returned. He didn't come alone. Behind him were two young men from a neighboring village, carrying tools and knowledge. They explained how shallow trenches could redirect water from a hidden stream beyond the rocks east of H. Skepticism filled the air. But desperation overrides pride. They worked for days under the burning sun. Tay led with patience, explaining every step. When water finally trickled into the first dugout channel, the entire village froze. Then it flowed stronger. Cheers erupted. For the first time since their birth, people looked at Tay not with suspicion, but admiration. Mama Sod cried openly. Even Chief Adise nodded in approval. But not everyone was pleased. Baba Femi watched from a distance. And Kenny stood beside him. See, Tay said later, approaching his brother with hope shining in his eyes. We can change this. Kenny stared at the flowing water. They praise you, he said quietly. They still fear me. Tay hesitated. And in that hesitation, a crack formed between them. The harvest season returned stronger than ever. Age prospered again. Songs filled the air. And Tay became the village's unlikely hero. Chief Adise began consulting him. Young men sought his advice. Even elders listened when he spoke. But power shifts create enemies. Baba Femi gathered loyal traditionalists in secret. They are abandoning our ways, he warned. Following a twin like a savior. And Kenny. He stood at the center of both worlds. He saw the love Tay received. And he saw the fear he himself still inspired. One night, he confronted Taiwo. What if I don't want to save them? Kenny asked. Tay's face fell. They are our people. They tried to sacrifice us. And now they are changing. Because you proved useful, Kenny snapped. Not because they were wrong. Silence. Two identical faces. Two completely different wounds. That same night, the village's main grain storage collapsed mysteriously. Rumors spread instantly. This time, Tay defended Kenny publicly. But doubt had returned. And Boba Femi smiled again. Tension divided age. Some supported Tay's progressive ideas. Others believed tradition had been disrespected. Chief Adise called for peace. But peace built on old fear is fragile. Evidence surfaced stones blocking the underground water path months earlier. Witnesses claimed they saw Kehinde near the river at night. The crowd gathered. Voices rose. Mama Sod screamed for mercy. Tay stood in front of his brother. Enough, he shouted. You created this fear. You fed it for years. But Kenny stepped forward slowly. They were right about one thing, he said calmly. Gasps. There is light and dark in twins. He looked directly at Tay. You chose to beg for their love. And you? Tay asked. I chose to remind them what fear feels like. The crowd trembled. Not because of magic, but because of truth. The final confrontation didn't involve weapons. It involved choice. Chief Adisa offered exile instead of death. Leave age, he said to Kenny. And the cycle ends. Tay turned to his brother, eyes filled with tears. Come back with me. Help me rebuild trust. For a moment, the anger in Kenny's face cracked. He looked at the villagers frightened, ashamed, divided. Then he laughed softly. You only love him because he saved you, he told them. You fear me because I showed you yourselves. And maybe he wasn't entirely wrong. Kenny chose exile. Not as punishment, but as protest. Years later, Age would tell stories of the Cassette twins. One who saved them. One who left to wander. But some elders would whisper that the village was saved not by rejecting darkness, but by finally confronting it. And somewhere beyond the hills, Kenny walked alone, not a monster, not a curse. Just a man shaped by fear. So tell me, if you were born hated, would you fight for acceptance? Or would you make them regret ever fearing you?